Kabelo Sello Duiker. It would be part science fiction, part comedy, a lot of drama, and spiritual realism, you know. But I think over and all it would be a love story.
What was beautiful about him was the whole notion of intrigue about the world. You never got used to being here. He was always intrigued, like someone passing through.
He made everybody feel that you are his very special friend.
Sello was a troubadour. He was a wayfarer. He was a traveling salesman. He could live anywhere. He was a kind of cat who can pick up his bags and go. He wrote these short, sparse, beautiful sentences.
When I started writing my brief to myself was that I want to write the kind of books I would have liked to have read growing up. So books that really talk about the South African experience, particularly the Black South African experience.
I was born in Soweto, and then for the last couple of years, my family has moved a little bit in South Africa, and also we lived in the UK for a couple of years.
Just blow me over. It was just the last thing I expected.
And I remember, for the first time in my life, feeling a relief that someone had died, even under the circumstances that determined his passing on.
We knew in terms of this illness, when from time to time he ended up in hospital because he took his medication, right? And when he was taking his medication, he was fine. But this medication started having effects on his weight, getting very tired and lethargic.
I tried to meet Kabelo Sello Duiker Soweto then in 13th April 1974. At the time, Neridula ko Pimville. And I think when he was about 4, we moved to Orlando West. Most statile crèche ya gagwe ko Rockville adula ko mama. My home. Primary education ya yona ya ko La Salle College ko Florida. Until standard 5. For high school, I go Red Hill in Morningside. As my eldest son, Negrato Sheradin Tolian, and then he developed an interest in reading. So much that when they were teenagers, then re khona go ba kopa ka di-birthday tsa bone what would they love to have, or ka Christmas ne re sa ba rekile Kabelo would re tla mo fa tšhelete, but he would always buy a book, he would or a CD. Na rata music and reading, anal collection ya hae. So we were watching Oprah, and Oprah was saying people should write what they would love to achieve in the year 2000. Seal it in an envelope. And the first day, New Year's Day in the year 2000, then they can open up the envelopes. Vividly, I remember, because it was predictable what he had written, and said, by the year 2000, I shall have published my first book.
Well, his first book, 13 Cents, is set in Long Street and set amongst the street children. Now, what he did, he actually lived with those children for 3 or 4 days. It was also one of these things that he just, he went to talk to them and he just decided, well, he'll follow them. It treats the sort of seamy side of city life and people having to cope with very difficult circumstances.
Now, Futek, he kicks me. I run away till I can get to the main road. My head is spinning with confusion. Surprisingly, my ankle doesn't hurt. I take off my shoe and hold it. I walk fast, and I don't think about where I'm going. I just walk. I go into town and walk into the gardens. I throw my shoe into a bin. My heart racing, I keep on walking, looking behind me to see if Gerald is there. Pigeons fly everywhere in the gardens. I'm suspicious of them.
I'd say his work is fiction. Cafe Ganesh and Anthony, who owned and ran Cafe Ganesh, have their names in Quiet Violence of Dreams. But I would say that a lot of it is like taking from you and somebody else and then saying, okay, we're creating a character here.
I had a chat with him during the breaks to find out whether his work, especially 13 Cents, whether it might be biographical, autobiographical or not. He said yes and no. He said Azure, his main character in 13 Cents, he shares some experiences with Azure, and he never told me what those experiences were.
I mean, it's a stunning book. I mean, completely about himself in the way that somebody's really trying to enter the depth of his own character and not stopping somewhere where it's hurting himself or where it might be dangerous for himself.
The way Sello created meaning out of life was through real life people. I know, for example, that the vulnerable aspect in the characters has a lot to do with his vulnerability, the way he depended so much on his mother. Sello loved his mother. And it's something he never outgrew as a young boy. He once said to me that he felt that it took too much space, in relation to the mother-father relationship. He felt guilty about that.
This takes just a much more serious look or a look at a much more complicated situation.
He was brave, you know, o nanka di risks, o na bua ka dintho tse leng hore batho ba bang ba tshaba bua ka tsona, you know. Homosexuality, violence mo baneng, the gangs sa ko Cape Town, bana ba ba di Model C with this complicated identity e re sa understanding.
For the past 8 years, we run a residency program on the island of Sylt. It's in the north of Germany, and we have been inviting a lot of South African writers, artists, composers to stay at this place for 1, 2, or 3 months.
When I established a link with a company in Germany on the island of Sylt, they were interested in an international exchange program. One of the first people I recommended to them was Sello Duiker.
I met him for the first time in South Africa, so to discuss all the matters, because I invited him once. Shortly before he was supposed to go on a residency, he declined, because then he told me later that he went to the countryside to become a Sangoma.
Before he went to be a Sangoma, he came to me at Wits. Then I was still working there. And he said to me, Xoli, I have to go away. I can't postpone this thing anymore. Then he went away. He disappeared for a couple of months. Then he came back. Then he told me about an episode that happened at 4 o'clock in the morning at the Twasa session, where he experienced divinity in a very deep way.
I think this started when he was now at Rhodes University. We started picking up sometimes some strange behaviors, you know. And there was a time when he came and he said to his mother that he has been speaking to people, and they say to him that he's got this gift of seeing things. He got in touch with this lady, and she said to him that he's got this gift. And Msizi ukutwasa. We did the rituals where we slaughtered the chicken and things like that. And then he went to this place where the training was supposed to have taken place. And I think he stayed there for about 3 to 4 weeks. But just one day he came back to us and he says, I don't think this is for me.
I still spoke to him that Saturday before his death because we were working on his last book, and that was, I could actually hear that he wasn't well. I didn't know that he wasn't well, but I thought he sounded a little bit irritated, which was very unusual for him.
The December before Sello passed, I spent it with him and my boyfriend at the time, and he was like the Sello that I first met. Like there was no sign of anything. He when I left to go to Boston, I didn't expect that when I was there I would hear the news that Sello had committed suicide. But yeah, it was a big shock because that December was it was fantastic.
The last few days of his life, He came one evening to come and see us in Hillbrow, where he had gone to go and have dinner. And when he came out, he was mugged. Fortunately, they only took money and his belongings, cell phone and things like that. And then they took his car keys as well, but they didn't know where he had parked his car. So then he got a lift up till here. We took him from here, went to his house, picked up the spare keys, and we went to fetch his car. Drove him back to his house, everything fine, and then we came back. And then I think the next day, because it was a Sunday, I think the next day he went to work. And his mom, that Saturday or Sunday, as I said, she phoned work just to find out has he recovered from the shock of being mugged. And then he was not at work. And then his mom thought maybe he's just tired or something like that. That's why he didn't go to work. And then the following day, she phoned again to find out if he did come to work, and he hadn't turned up for work. And then his mother then went to his place, and then this is what she discovered when she got there, that he had obviously taken his life.
I remember one morning he phoned me very early, around 1, 2 o'clock, and he said, "It's hard." And I said to him, I suggested that he should stay away from food and just eat raw vegetables. Maybe the taste will come back. And that was the last time I spoke with him.
Hanaba, an adolescent, only the mood swings. Highly happy, abe exceptionally happy, and abe sociable. Ali down in his moods, depressed, then ubatla space high, and we used to just think okay mood and remote, and that's where he would withdraw into himself, spend a lot of time in his room, abala, reading the book or listening to music. And I remember one day there was an incident and Kabelo took it so badly. I remember Principal Aribita Ariblela, this is what happened and all that. And then he went for counseling, but we didn't pay much attention because after that, as I medication, we left for counseling and then ababa out of it.
The stuff that he would tell me, and I'd be like, really? Because I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. And then only afterwards did I realize, no, actually, he's inside his imagination, you know? I think he chose the people he spoke to about it openly. And because of the history that we had with each other, there was nothing that he could hide from me, because there were things that I had seen him or heard him say or seen him do that I needed to remind him of, and he didn't. So I think with me, he was quite open. Although I think that towards the end, he wasn't as open. Yeah.
I would hear stories about, kana kongwe by na go workshop and he had a kind of episode go telling, I don't think his life was easy on him.
I think for him, he understood his sickness as something that had to do with the whole choice of choosing to be human. He spoke in depth about things that, in honor of his memory, that I'm not free to divulge at the moment. But I know that his identity had been deeply affected. He had been violated. He had been violated as a man, and he had been violated as a black man.
Sello told me he's sick. He told me that he was in and out of hospital. He was in psychiatric ward. But we writers have a way of beautifying things. We never said mental asylum, we said psychiatric ward. Possibly because he was not in a mental asylum. He owned up to me, he told me that, though we never dwelt on it. I mean, at one point I asked him why did he like Zol so much, spliff. And he had difficulty explaining to me why, you know, but I always went with him to where he bought it.
Well, that's when Abile for treatment to go, because na real off. And then I go psychiatrist, agree medication.
And I think when he took this medication, it had this effect of blowing him up and also making him sort of lethargic. And he didn't take his medication because of this. And I think that is where this depression came in, up to a point, I think, where he had to make a choice, or made a choice to say, if I'm going to blow up and I'm going to lead this type of a miserable life, maybe the only way out would be what he did, you know.
And what happens in this book is the little girl's main character, and it's set in near Johannesburg, in Soweto, more or less, one of the townships, and she finds this magic stones. It's a wonderful book. If it had to be a last book, that it's on that tone, and it's to me it's in a way very fitting that he would have made it his exit. The book, in fact, was edited after his death.
To those men who believe in the divinity of their origins, who walk hand in hand with their children at their pace, who submerge in our rivers to be baptized by balance, 1,000,000 hills are calling for your voice. Hurry, the silence is screaming.